DJ, PK, and we're joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Morning.
How surprised were you, Steve, to see an 89-84 game with BYU at one end of the Big 12 and Utah at the other end? Did that surprise you that it was a one-point game late?
Very, very, very surprised, to be honest with you. And part of it probably is I haven't watched Utah play a lot, but just watching comparative scores, I just didn't see this being a competitive game. Now, there's a couple things you look back in history and know that anytime you're having the University of Utah and BYU playing each other, there's going to be great interest and great energy and intensity, and guys are going to play well, and you expect that. But to be honest with you, just looking at what Alex Jensen is having to go through in terms of rebuilding a program, it's not easy to do. Obviously, it's much easier to be at home where you have fan base. But I wasn't at the game in person, but it looked like there were a lot of BYU fans there as well. Not that long of a drive. But I thought what Utah was able to do and pull off, and again, you had situations where, Brown and McKinney both just kind of go off, and I didn't know a lot about the team, and so when I watched it, I was just amazed in how competitive it was, how guys just made big shots, and there didn't seem to be any nerves at all. And it's not that BYU didn't play well. They did. They did a lot of good things. AJ and Saunders, Keita, all of them were doing what they always do. But you get on the road, or you get in a game where everyone expects you to lose. You just go into those kind of games, maybe a little more relaxed, and the pressure was kind of on BYU. So it was a great college basketball game. I'm not surprised that BYU won it. I'm just surprised how close that game and how competitive that game was. So kudos to Alex and his staff and his team for really going through a very tough time of rebuilding to play someone as good as BYU is. I know it's on the road, but they're a well-oiled machine, and I've watched them play all of their games, and they're really, really good. Kevin Young's done a great job, his staff. So fun to see that. Fun to see games like that where expectations are kind of low, and then all of a sudden they're met.
My concerns for BYU obviously don't include the main three. The only thing with Keita is staying out of foul trouble. I like Davis's approach of being kind of a junkyard dog, do whatever you need to do, bulldog mentality. But beyond that, that bench is really worrying me because they got 3 points the other night from the bench, and you're going to beat teams that you're supposed to beat, and you're going to have success in the conference for sure. But when you get in the NCAA tournament, which will determine the success of the season, you're like a rolled ankle away. In terms of cultivating a bench, how does Kevin Young go about it? Because I just don't know that they can continue with such little production and playing these other guys 35-plus minutes a game.
Well, that's a great insight. AJ and Saunders and Wright, they've been successful, and they've gotten good play out of Keita. Keita was hurt for a while. They miss him, his rim protection, and Kennard Davis is getting better. But you're right. After that, you just don't know. Boscovich is Kostic, Diamande, Mupu, Marus. They're all 2, 3, 4 point game guys, and and they're well represented internationally, but they just don't have that experience. And so I think the depth will be an issue. And, you're talking about a conference here where Arizona, Iowa State, Houston, Texas Tech, all of those teams are really, really good. And I don't know, I'm not as prepared as I probably should be on those other teams' depth charts, but I do know this, that it will be an issue if there's any kind of foul trouble or injuries. It'll be really difficult, especially on the road in this league, when you have to go to Arizona, when you have to go to ISU, when you have to play Houston, Texas Tech. There's a very, very competitive league, and if you have injuries or guys aren't playing well, it can be really difficult.
Abdul Ahmed has only had 4 games with BYU, so I don't know if you can make any really definitive statements about him, but what do you think about him? Because he would be, to PK's point, a 6th guy. It'd be something.
I did not hear the first part of that. So
What do you know about Abdullah Ahmed? He's only played 4 games with BYU. How much do you think he can contribute as far as adding some depth to the team?
Well, I think he can. We have to be understanding of the fact that he's, like you said, he's played 3 or 4 games. He doesn't have quite that experience, but he brings something to the table there with his athleticism and his energy. He runs the floor. I think he can. He's going to have to help. They do need to kind of energize that bench, and the only way players can really grow up is to go out and be on the floor, make mistakes, and go through those situations, have some successes. And so I do believe he can help, and he needs to help because they just don't have that depth. They don't have I don't want to say depth. I want to say experience. They haven't been in those kinds of settings. So it's needed. I would expect that staff to continue to give playing time to those that, especially, the problem is when you're in the preseason and you're up 20 or 30, you can work guys in and help them get their confidence. But from here on in, every night is going to be a challenge, and you just can't put inexperienced players in games where meaningful moments where you win, where you're looking at winning and losing games, you kind of stay with your core. But long term, to go through this conference, you're going to have injuries. You're going to have guys that kind of lose their confidence. And so to get some of that bench strength would be really helpful for Coach Young and his staff. So because a lot of teams are just one injury away, or guys get into a little bit of a slump, and you've got to now go on the road and play Houston, go on the road and play Iowa State. It can jar your confidence a little bit. So, I really believe in that staff and how they've developed this team. But there are the unknown things where injuries and guys lose confidence, especially on the road. Winning on the road, I don't care what their record is or what's going on or how successful teams have been. It's hard to win on the road. And we saw that against Utah, a team that no one clearly thought they had a chance of winning, despite the fact being at home. And I didn't know anybody. I was sitting there looking at the roster. I said, I don't know any of these people, But, this morning I'm looking at Terrence Brown and Don McHenry and Traore. And you look at guys like that and you go, hey, this team is really solid. So I wish Alex well, and hope they can continue to compete and get better. I'm confident that BYU will be there at the end. They just got too much talent, great coaching, and a depth chart.
All right, I'm going to throw this at you then. You're playing to win the game, all right? That's the obvious statement. But how about if you would lose 1 or 2 along the way, you're still going to make the NCAA tournament. You're probably going to get a decent seed. Most likely you're going to make it to the second week, and then it depends on matchups and how you play in those individual games. But maybe in the first half, early in the second half, maybe give guys some more time, even if it ultimately cost you a game or two, the opportunity to have, 1 step back, 2 step forward. Do you buy that theory?
Well, I tell you what, my thinking is this. I'm looking at this roster right now. Looking at Boscovich, Kostick, Diamande, Mabu, Marus. We're talking about guys that have not played significant minutes. And it's way easier to play guys early in games. The mistakes aren't so terrifying when, it's hard to put guys who haven't played a lot and put them in, with 7 or 8 minutes to go in a game.
Right.
And expect kind of step in and that's unfair to those guys.
Right.
But I do believe that even though Boscovich and Kostick and Diamande, they're all averaging about 3 or 4 points a game, they have experience. You start looking at these guys, and Boscovich is from Serbia, Kostick is from Austria, Diamande is from France, Mabouk is Senegal. These are guys that have been playing other places in the world, And I realize it's different, but I think that having those international players who have played from a very young age, I think that's more the likelihood is that these guys will adjust. There's enough talent there. I think you got a coaching staff that will develop and pick and choose. I like the opportunity, especially when I had guys that have lost confidence in that 7 or 8 position. I can remember very quickly getting those guys in games early on because that let them breathe a little bit. They got to touch the ball so that if they are needed later in games or later in the season, you don't just have a rookie that's just bouncing off the walls and not making good decisions. I like the idea of taking guys to your 7 or 8 or 9 guys, sub those guys out. AJ needs a break. Saunders needs a break. Wright needs. We know those guys are going to be in the games, but developing the bottom half of that bench would be a really wise thing, just for the sake of just injuries, road challenges, and all the things that are going on. And you start looking. You're at Arizona. You're at Iowa State, at Houston, Texas Tech. Man, that's murderer's row. I mean, not only those good teams, those are great coaches, as is Coach Young. And I think Alex, he grew up. And I just respect that so much. And I know it's difficult. It's going to be difficult for him. But I remember playing against him teams when Rick Majerus was the coach. And, I mean, we were just overwhelmed trying to get competitive. And eventually that happened, but not without some real whoopings that we received at their benefit. So I like this league and this conference. And we're going to see lots of upset nights. It's not going to surprise me any night somebody gets beat on the road, just because this league is so good and has so much depth.
You had to go through some rebuilds. You must have taken some beatings. What do you say to a team after a 55-point loss like the Jazz just suffered?
It's funny you should ask me that because I had spent, as I prepared for this today and just thinking about it, I was thinking about the Jazz. And, they're 1-5 in the last 6 games. They did beat Dallas, but I have watched this team, and when it's difficult enough when they're fully healthy. When they're not healthy, it's impossible to compete. And I don't know what we call this. I hear publicly that we're not rebuilding. We are rebuilding. We're not starting over. We're not going to just lose 30 games in a row and see what kind of pick we can get at the end of the year. I mean, this is an organization that's trying to win and compete. And I think that both Danny Ainge and Austin Ainge, they're really experienced, years and years of experience. People ask me all the time, is this a rebuild? And I said, well, I don't think that's what people are talking about. I think what they're talking about is we just got to continue to get better. I think focus on playing the guys that need to be played. You look at Markkanen, 28 a game, Keontae, 24 a game, Walker Kessler, 15, Ace Bailey, 10. I mean, you've got a lot of depth and guys that can play. It's just not winning the close games, putting themselves in a position. I mean, it's hard. I can't even imagine being in that situation and playing that league. You just got to stay positive with the guys. I think skill development stuff that's going on after games, before games, 2 or 3 game breaks, you're still working on those kinds of things where guys just got to get better. And there is some experience there. And, one of the disappointments for me, and I really, really like Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida. I thought he would be kind of an impact guy, and he really hasn't been. But I thought that he'd be somebody that could really step in. I'd like to see him, see where he can go and what he can do. But, I mean, it's tough. It's tough, and this league's good. And you just got to be positive, and you got to work day in and day out. It just doesn't do any good to drag people in the mud and start pointing fingers. And I know fans can do that, but not coaches. I just don't see this staff giving up on these guys. But it's hard. Your gut never really feels good. And I've been involved in enough rebuilds from the high school, junior college, Division I. It's hard. And I think I spent way more time on culture than I did worrying about X's and O's. And I learned a lot about myself and about my guys, and spending time one-on-one with my guys and making sure that mentally and emotionally they were okay. I go back to that word culture, and I think that if you're trying to develop and build a championship culture, it starts with relationships with your players, relationships with your staff, and being really just open to thoughts and ideas. And there's no unless guys are, if there are effort issues, then shame on them and they come sit on the bench. I just don't think there are effort issues with this group. Injuries can be devastating for teams that don't have the depth and the talent. God bless those guys, man. I hope they get it going. I want them to be successful. And obviously we all have connections to the staff. You just have to hang in there and stay with it. And I trust them and I believe them. Hopefully there's some trades or a better draft or whatever the circumstances are. But I believe in Austin Ains, and obviously I believe in Danny and what these guys are doing. And I just hope that we can turn the corner where wins are possible and plausible. And right now, the last 6 games are 1-5, and unfortunately, the league is really good. And so I'll be there rooting them on, and I believe in those guys, and I just really, really hope that the confidence will swing and guys will start seeing that thing that ball going through the basket where they can go and win on the road. And a win on the road right now, no matter what happens at home, but winning on the road could really galvanize the team and give them the confidence to win at home. And I know it's really hard, but the interesting thing, the only win the Jazz have in the last 6 games is a big win over Dallas, 116 and 114. So maybe another game or 2 like that, and this group can get revitalized and get more confident with what's happening. I think the bases are all covered with coaching staff and organization. It's just the guys just got to start believing and spending the time necessary off the court to find ways to win a few games.
Steve, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week. We're just 2 weeks away from another BYU Utah game. So there you go. The rematch is coming.
Have a great week.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer and analyst, joins us coming up at 9 o'clock. PK, is there another topic you'd like to get to next?
Yeah, man. All these people living in Salt Lake City East.
Or Ann Arbor. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.